Welcome to Daily Life in the Past. Here, we explore how ordinary people lived before modern technology and comfort shaped everyday life. If you enjoy learning about the past, feel free to leave a comment and let us know where you are watching from. And if you would like to support the channel, a like or subscription is always appreciated. For most of human history, daily life was physically harder because the basic systems that supported living were powered by people and animals, not by engines, electricity, or pressurized networks. When a modern household needs water, heat, clean clothes, cooked food, or a trip across town, hidden systems do much of the work: pumps, power plants, delivery fleets, machines, and paved roads. In earlier periods, those same needs were still there, but the infrastructure often ended at the edge of the home or the edge of the village. That meant ordinary people supplied the missing energy with their own bodies. This video explains why everyday life required more physical effort in the past. It is not about one place or one century. Conditions varied by region, climate, wealth, and status, but across many societies, the same pattern appears again and again. Tasks that are now automated, outsourced, or handled by large systems used to be done by hand, step by step, every day. First, it helps to define what physically harder means. It does not only mean heavy lifting. It includes repetitive strain, long periods standing or walking, awkward postures, and the constant need to move materials, water, fuel, food, clothing, tools from one place to another. It also includes the simple fact that many people had fewer labor-saving options. If something needed to happen, the body usually did it. A major reason daily life demanded more effort was energy. Modern life runs on high-density energy sources and machines that convert energy into motion. A washing machine, a water heater, a bus, and a refrigerator are all ways of spending fuel and electricity so human muscles do not have to. In the past, most households had limited access to concentrated energy. Wood, charcoal, dung, peat, and later coal could provide heat, but converting that heat into useful power inside the home was not simple. For motion, turning, pumping, grinding, lifting, the common motors were human arms, human backs, and animal strength. Water is one of the clearest examples. Today, in many places, water appears from a tap under pressure, and wastewater disappears down a drain into sewers and treatment plants. In many older settings, the household's water system was a container. People obtained water from a river, spring, well, cistern, fountain, or public pump. Then they carried it to where it was needed. Carrying water sounds simple until you think about volume and frequency. Water is heavy. A gallon weighs a little over 8 pounds. A bucket that holds several gallons quickly becomes a serious load. And water was needed for many tasks: drinking, cooking, washing hands, cleaning dishes, laundering clothes, washing floors, bathing, and caring for animals. Even if families used water carefully, the repeated trips added up. In towns and cities, some people paid water carriers or relied on neighborhood sources, but many still had to transport water manually. In rural areas, distance and terrain could make this even more demanding. It was not only clean water coming in, waste had to go out. Before widespread indoor plumbing, households managed human waste with privies, chamber pots, cesspits, latrines, or other local arrangements. Removing waste or maintaining pits required labor and planning. In dense urban areas, this also became a city-wide problem long before modern sewer networks were built. The point is not only discomfort, it is physical work: moving buckets, scrubbing containers, carrying materials, and maintaining spaces. Heat and cooking created another daily physical burden: fuel. Modern heating and cooking usually depend on fuels delivered through pipelines or grids, natural gas, electricity, or on processed fuels purchased in convenient forms. In earlier periods, fuel often meant wood, charcoal, peat, dried dung, or coal, and getting it to the fire was a regular job. Where wood was the main fuel, it had to be collected, cut, split, dried, stored, and carried. Even when wood came from a nearby forest, gathering it took time and effort. Cutting tools helped, but they did not eliminate labor. Splitting wood by hand is repetitive and requires strength and technique. Storing it required space and protection from weather. And every day, someone still carried loads from the pile to the hearth. In places and periods where coal became common, the labor changed but did not disappear. Coal could be delivered, but it still had to be carried indoors, sometimes upstairs, and ashes had to be removed. Fires had to be started, maintained, and cleaned. Before central heating, heat was often local. That meant moving people toward heat, rather than moving heat toward people. Rooms not near a fire could be cold. As a result, households clustered activities around the hearth or stove, and maintaining that heat was a constant task. Cooking itself also demanded physical management of fire. With modern stoves, you turn a knob and heat appears. With open hearth cooking or early stoves, the cook had to understand fuel types, draft, airflow, and timing. Fires had to be started early, tended throughout the day, and banked at night. Pots and ovens were heavy, and managing them over coals required careful lifting and positioning. Heat control was physical. You adjusted the fire by adding fuel, moving coals, shifting cookware, and sometimes moving your own position for hours. Next is food preparation, which used to include steps that many households no longer do. Consider grain. Bread, porridge, and other grain foods have fed huge parts of the world for centuries. But turning grain into flour required milling. In some places, people took grain to a mill, which could be powered by water or wind. That saved muscle at the grinding stage, but it still required carrying sacks to and from the mill. In other settings, households used hand mills or mortars and pestles. Grinding grain by hand is slow, repetitive, and tiring. The same is true for many other foods. Churning butter, beating mixtures, kneading dough, slicing and pounding ingredients, and processing preserved foods. Food storage also demanded more work. Refrigerators and freezers allow modern households to store large amounts of food safely with little daily effort. Without that, people relied on drying, salting, smoking, pickling, fermenting, cellars, cool rooms, and frequent cooking. These methods worked, but they required planning and labor. Preserving food often meant days of seasonal work, harvesting, cleaning, cutting, heating, stirring, packing, and sealing. Even in ordinary weeks, many households had to shop or gather food more often because spoilage was a constant risk. Shopping itself could be physical. Today, many people drive to large stores, buy large quantities, and transport them by car. In earlier periods, people often walked to markets and carried goods back. That might mean baskets, bundles, or carts pulled by hand. Even when animals were used, loading and unloading remained human work. Clothing care is another major reason daily life was harder. Modern laundry is mostly machine-powered, washing, rinsing, spinning, and sometimes drying. Before these machines, laundering required steps that were both heavy and repetitive. Laundry was not just washing. It involved hauling water, heating water, mixing soaps or lye-based solutions, soaking, scrubbing fabric against surfaces, pounding or beating cloth, rinsing multiple times, wringing out heavy wet garments, and hanging them to dry. Wet cloth holds a lot of water, so lifting and twisting it repeatedly is exhausting. In some times and places, mechanical aids like wringers and mangles existed, but they were still hand-cranked and required strength and attention. Many households also ironed with heavy irons that had to be heated, sometimes by swapping multiple irons in and out of the fire. The physical workload was not evenly distributed. In many societies, laundry and many other domestic tasks were assigned mainly to women and girls, while other heavy labor, plowing, hauling, building, was often assigned mainly to men and boys. But these were broad patterns, not universal rules. The main point is that the household, as a system, depended on constant physical input. Someone's muscles paid the cost. Cleaning and maintenance also required more effort. Consider floors, soot, and dust. Fires created ash and smoke residue. Cooking and heating with solid fuels made indoor air dirtier. Cleaning meant sweeping, scrubbing, beating rugs, washing walls or surfaces, and carrying away ash. Lighting, too, created work. Before electric lights, homes used candles, oil lamps, and sometimes gas lighting. Those systems required trimming wicks, cleaning soot from lamp chimneys, refilling fuel, and safely storing flammable supplies. Then there is transportation. A key difference between past and present is not that people never travelled far before engines. It is that ordinary short-distance movement was more often done on foot. Without personal cars, commuting and daily errands frequently meant walking. In rural areas, distances could be longer, and roads could be muddy, uneven, or seasonally difficult. In cities, walking was still common, but streets could suggest heavy wear, crowded conditions, animals, and limited sanitation infrastructure. Walking may sound mild, but its effect depends on frequency, load, and environment. Walking with empty hands is different from walking while carrying water, firewood, tools, or food. It is also different when footwear is limited, roads are rough, and time pressures are strict. Many jobs required standing or walking for long periods. Artisans, vendors, domestic workers, farm laborers, messengers, and porters. Even when animals were used for transport, daily life still included much more foot travel than a car-centered routine. Work life for large parts of the population was also more physically demanding because of the economic structure. Before widespread mechanization, most production relied on muscle and simple tools. Farming is the clearest example. Planting, weeding, harvesting, threshing, and transporting crops required large amounts of labor. Animals and some tools improved efficiency, but many steps still depended on manual work. In many regions, a large share of the population worked in agriculture. That meant seasonal peaks of intense effort. Harvest time could involve long days timed to weather. The same was true for haymaking, planting seasons, and processing crops. Even outside agriculture, many trades were more physically intense than their modern counterparts because materials were heavier, tools were less specialized, and mechanical lifting systems were limited. It is important to note that harder does not always mean stronger or healthier. Repeated heavy labor can build strength, but it can also cause injuries and chronic pain. Without modern medicine, a strained back or infected cut could have serious consequences. Many tasks were done in cold, heat, smoke, or damp conditions. Over time, this increased physical wear. Another reason daily life demanded more effort was the design of buildings and cities. Many older buildings had steep stairs, limited insulation, and no elevators. Carrying coal, water, and goods up and down stairs was common in multi-story housing. Heating was often uneven, which affected how people moved and worked inside the home. In towns without modern street paving and drainage, rain could turn streets into heavy mud, making movement slower and more tiring. Time-saving services also mattered. Today, people can pay for services that reduce physical labor, laundromats, grocery delivery, prepared food, cleaning services, ride shares, and package delivery. In the past, some households did hire help, and cities had specialized workers like porters, water carriers, and washerwomen. But for many families, especially the poor, paying for extra labor was not possible. Physical effort was the default, even where paid labor existed. That does not eliminate the overall physical burden in society. It often shifts it. If a household paid a washerwoman, the labor was still done by someone's arms. If a wealthy family had servants, the servants did the carrying, scrubbing, and hauling. systems still depended on human bodies doing work that machines now do. When we look across historical periods, we also see gradual changes that reduced daily physical effort, but not all at once. Small improvements could help. Better roads, improved stoves, public wells, communal washhouses, and hand tools designed to reduce strain. In the 19th and 20th centuries, major shifts came from networks and machines, piped water, sewer systems, gas networks, electrification, and household appliances. Each system removed a layer of manual handling. A pressurized water network replaces repeated bucket trips. A sewer system replaces manual waste removal. Electric lights replace daily lamp maintenance. A stove with reliable fuel supply reduces time spent managing fire. A washing machine replaces hours of scrubbing and wringing. A refrigerator reduces the need for constant food preservation and frequent shopping. Public transit and cars replace long walks carrying loads. Together, these changes reduce not only the intensity of tasks, but also the number of separate physical actions required each day. There is another hidden factor: modern standardization. Many modern products are designed to be light, portable, and easy to handle. Clothing fabrics, cleaning supplies, packaged foods, and plastic containers reduce the effort needed to store and move things. In earlier periods, people worked with heavier materials: wood, stone, iron, wet textiles, and bulk goods. Containers were heavier and often less ergonomic. Handles, wheels, and smooth surfaces that we take for granted were not always available. Finally, daily life was physically harder because the buffer against mistakes was thinner. If you ran out of dry wood, you could not cook as planned. If you could not fetch water, cleaning and cooking might stop. If you could not wash clothes, hygiene and comfort suffered. Many routines were not optional. They were required to keep the household running. That made the work steady and unavoidable. Putting it all together, older daily life demanded more physical effort because fundamental needs, water, heat, food, clean clothing, and movement, were met through direct manual handling. People carried inputs in, processed them by hand, and carried wastes out. The household was both a living space and a production site. And the energy source for many tasks was muscle. This does not mean the past was the same everywhere, or that every person worked at the same intensity. Wealth, location, technology, and social status changed the experience. But across many times and places, the basic pattern remains clear. Before modern infrastructure and machines, daily life required constant physical work simply to maintain normal living standards. Understanding that difference helps explain why so many modern conveniences feel ordinary. They are not just comforts, they are systems that replace thousands of small acts of lifting, carrying, scrubbing, grinding, and walking. In earlier periods, those acts were woven into the day. Physical effort was not a separate activity. It was the method by which daily life functioned.